All right, guys and gals. So today, we've got kind of an interesting topic that I think a lot of you guys can relate to. So my brother and I were having an off-bar conversation about New Year's resolutions. And, I think what's cool about my brother and I is we're very real, and we just dig into more than just surface level stuff. And so when I asked him what his resolution was, he actually said, my goal is to spend at least 500 hours outside. So I quickly took out the calculator, did 500 divided by 365 and said, well, man, that's a lot of time. That's roughly
about
an hour.
Well, originally I had said 1,000 hours. And being that we live in the Midwest, the time to spend outdoors is really limited to about 8 months of the year when it's not snowing and freezing, or you're just going to be miserable out there. And I want this to be a family thing where our children, our spouses can go out there with us and spend time getting that fresh air, watching, sunsets, huddling around a campfire, roasting marshmallows and hot dogs and stuff. So 1,000 hours equates to about 18 to 20 hours a week for a full year. But again, we're limited by, inclement weather that we might experience. So we're thinking between 500 and 750 hours is a little bit more realistic.
And on a bell curve, right? So bell curve starts off, 0 essentially, and works itself up to 1, 2, 3, and can go way up from there. But the idea is, instead of that being the amount of time we're outside, that would be the hours that we are outside in the season. So January, February would be very low amount of hours per week. And then when you're talking June, July, and August, you're talking really good hot weather that you can do a lot more stuff in. You're talking maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours outside a day or a week.
Right, and so to track this, there's apps out there where you can track certain things like, weight loss and all that stuff. There is one out there that's you can pay for that will help you track. But really what we're just doing is keeping tally marks on our calendar. So we have a calendar in our kitchen where we'll mark, doctor's appointments or school, or days that school's closed and stuff. And every day that we spend, an hour or more, we'll do a little notch on that day. And at the end of the month, we'll write down on the next month's page how many hours we had before and keep it going, keep it accumulating.
Yeah, and so I guess that whole conversation is kind of a roundabout way because of saying, like, what is so important to you or the person listening about being outside? Like, what does outside mean to you? And I think right now, more than ever, we're feeling the repercussions of just staying inside. I mean, I work at my house. I sit at a desk all day. And then I get off work, put the kids to bed, and I'm still inside watching TV or doing some chores around the house. So there's days where I don't get outside. And so this podcast is really going to talk about how outdoors makes us feel different, what we experience when we're outside, our mental or emotional or physical, and so on and so on.
Yeah, there are some countries in the world, and I'm specifically thinking of Scotland, that actually prescribe going outdoors. And, Scotland is a little bit more scenic than rural Kansas, but the doctors over there have realized that mental health starts from breaking the norm and experiencing what's real. And it's not, finding yourself in a video game or lost in a movie. It's actually being outdoors, maybe going for a hike, a walk, just getting the real sunlight and that fresh air. So Chase, what feelings do you experience like when you come out to our land? and you get out of your truck and you just breathe in that first deep breath of country air. What do you feel?
Yeah. So for me, I think I have a pretty stressful job at sometimes. And as soon as I step foot on the land, it feels like a lot of those worries about my job or my career dissipate. I find when I'm still in the hustle and bustle of suburbia, I can catch myself thinking about my work driving to the grocery store or at the grocery store. And so as soon as I step foot on the land, it's almost like a mental cleansing of the mind. It's quiet. The nearest road is, upwards to 1 mile to 2 miles away. And so you don't even hear cars. You may hear a dog barking in the background, but it just gets overshadowed by the leaves rustling around or the grass crunching as you walk through it. So I think just having that solitude, it's just a mind cleanse. I'll start with mind. So that's just my mind. I'm not even going to talk about physical or anything. But what about you, man?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up work. So in this pandemic, a lot of us have started working remotely or working from home 100% of the time. And you never are actually able to turn that off. So the 8-hour workday is really not a thing anymore. I'm a software developer / programmer for a full-time job, and I always say that programming is thinking, not typing. And so a lot of times it was actually getting up and getting away that would help me solve a logical issue or something like that. But much like you, when I first get to the land and see the cabin, my first ideas or first thoughts are, what do I want to accomplish? Like I go there goal oriented. Like, is it just going to be just a break from suburbia, or do I have certain chores I want to get done, like check the traps, check the feeder, refill, X, Y, and Z. But that work is actually fun. It's not like mowing the yard at our residence. It's I get to hop on a 70-year-old tractor with a 6-foot brush hog and buzz around for a couple hours in the middle of nowhere, and you get that sense of accomplishment. But it's different than just normal housework or other chores you might do around the house.
Yeah, it is different. And for example, I don't even have service. I go there and I tell my wife, if you need anything, text my brother, and he has just enough service just to do a phone call and a text, and probably not enough to really get online and do anything. So you don't have TVs, you just become absent of all that stuff, and it is so refreshing. I can't explain it to you other than go to your largest state park, put your phone under your seat, and go walking for an hour or two.
Yeah.
And just feel that sense of, relief.
Yeah, and, if there are hiking trails or state parks around where you live, go out and explore. Get off the path if that's allowed. Don't trespass, but, actually to disconnect, you've got to break away from mankind. And walking trails.
It makes me think of the Truman Show. He never, until he started putting the pieces of the puzzle together, he never took a step off a path that was already designed for him.
Yeah.
So he walked the path of another man his whole life.
Yeah.
Until it clicked. So wow, that was a great point that you made.
Yeah, I'm not advising you to trespass, but you never know what you might find. And the more time we spend out at the land, the more I'm finding. Sometimes we've got these huge creeks, and when it rains or that snow melts and it just all kind of comes, west to east, we've got like little shoals of rock and bedrock. And I like to kind of go down there and look around to see what may have washed up after the last storm when the creek was really raging. and I found, bones and, it looks like Indian tools. I think those roaring creaks when it goes, I think it kind of churns the rotation of the earth and the soil, and I found rock that look like they've been chiseled to be sharpened on purpose, that may have been used to tan hide or field dress an animal 200 years ago.
It's really cool. Yeah, and I think, you're talking to me and you're like, I think you could be asking yourself, like, how do I know, if I'm doing something like that, right? Because for many of you, maybe you don't have land like Chad and I, but maybe you have a park nearby. I think, at least when I know that I'm experiencing something new, is to be transparent, a little anxious. It's a little different. You're present with your mind and your body. You're really watching every step that you put, and you're thinking of, well, what if somebody is behind that tree, or what if a coyote is behind that tree? Your mind starts to push. And much like working out, not wanting to work out, your body's going to resist danger. And I don't think there's anything dangerous about walking, a foot or two off the beaten path. But it's amazing, and you'll sense how quickly your mind says, hey, you need to be careful, this is new. Hey, this hasn't been traveled before. Hey, this is, not what I'm used to. Because every day that you guys leave your house, you're leaving your house on a path that somebody else has already laid down. And you have a safety net around you all over the place. You got a road to go to. Other cars might be on that road. You might see businesses. You might see hospitals. You might see whatever.
Yeah.
So I think just the challenge, just a small challenge for yourself would be just to walk a little bit off the beaten path, and not far. Like you said, don't trespass, but just challenge yourself.
Yeah, I mean, think about when we would be driving to work, the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, before the pandemic hit. How many times on the road did you actually see the same car with the same driver driving to work day in and day out? And how many times did you just feel like you were in a rut? If there's anything that I can be thankful for in this pandemic, I would say it's the ability to break the norm, to get off the beaten path, to use that term metaphorically, get off the beaten path and explore. And the way I'm enjoying that is, getting lost in the woods,
Yeah, well said, man. So, you spend a lot of time, more than me, out at your land, because obviously it's your land and a little closer to your residence. What has that land done for your body physically?
So actually, since buying the land, I've lost about 8 pounds. Just probably from the hiking, the walking, the laborious work that you have to do when you're out there. There's no electricity, so everything that needs to be done is almost either mechanical or manual. And to do the mechanical things, you have to sometimes put in a little bit of manual labor into it as well. So before I mentioned the 70-year-old tractor, a Ford Jubilee with a 6-foot brush hog. Well, that brush hog probably weighs 200 or 300 pounds. It's 6 foot wide and 8 foot long. And I can only park so close with that tractor with the wheels sticking out. I can only back it up so close to the brush hog. And the rest of the way, I have to yank and pull and really exert some energy to hook it up to the PTO shaft and the other security things before I can even mow. And that is exhausting. But, it's worth it, because then, I've got this mechanical device that allows me to mow the 2 or 3 acres that we have that's kind of clear of any trees and everything like that. But also the hiking, I'll wear my Fitbit and I'll watch, my step count, number one, but also the number of stairs, number of levels. What do they call it? I forget.
Yeah, elevation.
Yeah, and it will tell me when I'm out at the land and I'm more during like labor stuff. Like when we put up that tree stand last November, it told me that I walked up and down about 16 flights of stairs in about 2 hours. So that'd be like being ground level downtown and walking up to 16 flights of stairs. And that exerts and burns a ton of calories. So there is a lot of physical activity that you take part in when you're out there.
And that's 8 pounds lost, and as soon as you get done with the day, you go pick up a big pizza or Chipotle for the family. So, it's not like you started a diet once you bought this land either.
No. I feel more healthy now than ever. We always weightlift on and off, throughout the years and stuff. But it's never been the same as just going out there and doing this type of work.
Yeah, for sure. I think mine, physically, I think, we talked about in the previous episode, this sheer amount of elevation. And so, I haven't had too many work days out there, which I've had a couple, but not as many as you. So maybe not lost as many pounds, but just got the heart rate going. I get excited and I get pumped just to go to the land, and then just to get the heart rate pumping that much to run up or walk up the hill or get to shoot guns or bows or whatever. I can almost feel my body just getting excited from each vein in my body, wanting to operate more than just walking around a grocery store. Your brain is so much more turned on, and I think that when it's turned on, parts of your body start to work better. So it's almost like somebody who does triathlons, and they do the same thing every day, and then when race day comes, they have just an overabundance of energy in their body because they're just so hyped in their surroundings.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up archery and shooting, because we measure, when we go shooting or we do archery, we measure the distance that we're shooting in yards. Okay, and a lot of us don't have a wide step length. So when we're shooting, let's just say 50 yards for ease of math, and we shoot, let's say 3 arrows, and we've got to go to retrieve them. If we do 10 volleys or 10 rounds of shooting 3 arrows, and we're walking back and forth between where we're shooting at 50 yards and the target, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, after 10 trips, that's almost 1,000 yards. Right? So 10 times down, 10 times back. 1,000 yards is about 3,000 feet. And let's just say that our step length is about 2 feet wide. Every step we take is more or less 2 feet. That's about 1.5 miles, if my math is correct. Of just being outdoors, doing something we're enjoying, like shooting or doing archery, and just walking to retrieve our arrows and walking back to do the next round. Being outdoors has a lot of benefits. Your mental health and obviously your physical health. And we challenge you to go outside, get off the beaten path, find something new that might be a little bit scary at first, but know that you'll be safe and that you'll thank us later. And with that, I'm going to wrap up, and thank you for joining.